You're not invited to the wedding. Please don't make this harder." The words pulsed on my phone like a neon sign flickering against darkness. I stood at the ironing board with steam curling upward, pressing the white shirt Christopher had asked me to prepare for his rehearsal dinner. A shirt for an evening I was suddenly unworthy to attend. I called him once, then again, my thumb trembling on the screen. Both times voicemail. My own voice echoed faintly in the quiet house, hitting the refrigerator door, then fading into nothing. I lowered the phone and caught the sound of the clock in the kitchen, a relentless tick that had measured every casserole baked, every overtime shift endured. A second message arrived. "It's Madison's day. We decided." The plural, we cut deeper than the words themselves. I saw her face in my mind, that smile stretched too tightly at the last family dinner, the way she'd pushed my glass a few inches away on the table, as though space itself could erase me. She had leaned into Christopher's ear when I mentioned my guest list of 6 family friends who'd held him as a baby. "Small is better," she'd whispered, as if my presence were clutter. I folded the warm shirt and laid it across the back of the dining chair. That chair had once held Christopher's backpack and elbows when he raced through stories of school. Now it sat empty, polished wood glinting under the light, a seat in the family that no longer belonged to me. I opened the hall closet and let my eyes linger on the ceremony. It still hung in its plastic wrap, sleeves soft, tag uncut. I had chosen it carefully, plain enough not to overshadow anyone. I shut the door quickly, the sound too much like finality. I wanted to text one word, "Why?" but erased it. I typed instead. I thought I was helping. The message delivered, read, ignored. On the counter sat the thick binder I'd built for months, marked with tabs: venue, florist, catering, rentals. My name signed in careful ink across every contract. I had always told myself it was simpler that way. Vendors trusted me and time mattered. But as I touched the smooth covers, I realized my name was more than a formality. The blinds cut sunlight into stripes across the room. The wall was crowded with frames. Christopher in a crooked graduation cap, Abigail laughing over a pecan pie, and Richard smiling with that easy charm that had once sold me on promises. Richard had left years ago, but his voice still lived in my memory. "Don't be so dramatic, Ellie. It's not about you." I could already hear him now if I called, dismissing my hurt, telling me to keep the peace for the children's sake. His absence had become a presence in itself. The kettle clicked off, though I hadn't meant to boil it. I poured coffee and let it sit untouched, cooling fast. The silence pressed harder. From the porch, I glimpsed the neighbor's American flag stirring weakly in the Charleston humidity. Across the street, the mailbox groaned with flyers and catalogs, things people sent when they wanted money, not love. Memories began rolling in like tidewater, selling my engagement ring at a jeweler's counter to cover Christopher's down payment. Learning the bus schedule by heart so he could take the car to rotations, in at the back of the auditorium when he graduated, clapping quietly, while another mother pressed a tissue into my hand. Madison hadn't been there then. She hadn't seen the quiet scaffolding I'd built under his life. I reached for the binder and flipped through. Florist? Eleanor Hayes. Catering? Eleanor Hayes. All of it mine. I remembered Madison's voice when I once offered to bring my binder to their apartment. "You don't have to worry about that," she'd said. "We've got it under control." Yet every line in ink said otherwise. My phone buzzed with a new message, not from Christopher but from Abigail. "Just let them have their moment, Mom. You always make Madison nervous." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. There it was, the hidden verdict. I was the problem, not the mother. The chair across from me stood empty, a permanent vacancy. Dust floated in the sunlight like tiny verdicts. I thought of every Thanksgiving where I'd filled plates before taking my own last, every Christmas where my gift was silence. I had agreed to be small. Today, someone decided I should be invisible. Outside, cicadas droned, filling the air with their ceaseless cry. The binder waited under my hand, heavy as a verdict, my name on every page. For years I had been useful. Useful is not the same as loved. I closed it slowly, the papers whispering like a secret. I poured the cold coffee down the sink and dried the mug, setting it neatly in the rack with its lip facing up, ready for someone who remembered me. They thought I could be erased. But every contract carried my name. Family, Richard sneered over the phone. Don't be petty. Richard's voice hadn't reached me in months. Not for Christmas, not for Abigail's birthday. But now, when money was needed, he arrived like a debt collector dressed as a parent. We're pooling together, he went on, voice oily with charm. A surprise down payment for Christopher and Madison. $2,800 apiece. Just transfer it to me and I'll handle the logistics. I kept my silence. He filled it with a chuckle, the same one that used to dismiss my exhaustion when I worked double shifts. Ellie, you're not really going to make this awkward, are you? I'm not invited to the wedding, I said flatly. A pause, then the sigh I knew by heart. Don't be dramatic, this isn't about you, it's for the kids. That word again. I ended the call without goodbye. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a basketball thudded on the neighbor's driveway. I pressed my hand against the binder cover, grounding myself. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Abigail. My daughter's voice was careful, each word smoothed like she feared they might cut. Mom, I know this hurts, but maybe just let them have their moment. Madison's under a lot of stress right now. So, I'm the stress? I didn't say that, she murmured. You know how she gets when things aren't perfect. Perfect. Madison's favorite word. Perfect centerpieces, perfect playlists, perfect silence from her fiancé's mother. Abigail exhaled softly. It's their day. Don't make it harder. Her words landed heavier than Richard's. I hung up before my voice cracked. I stared at the phone until it dimmed, then another notification blinked. A text from Madison herself. We need things calm. Please respect that. This is our time, not yours. My throat tightened. She hadn't even used my name. Not Eleanor, not Mom. Just a pronoun erased into the background. Memory surged. I saw us in my kitchen months ago, the air smelling of pecan pie I had baked for her visit. She had pointed at the curtain, lips tightening. Hydrangeas are better for photos. Christopher had laughed nervously, kissing her temple, while I carried the pie back to the counter untouched. That was the first time I felt my home wasn't mine anymore. A rehearsal for erasure. Now I opened the binder, page after page of my own name staring back. Venue, client, florist, Eleanor Hayes. Catering, Eleanor Hayes. Every line of ink was labor Madison would never admit belonged to me. The venue discount secured because I once saved the manager's wife in ICU. The lilies ordered because I put my credit on the line. The caterer's smile when he shook my hand, promising flawless service for me. Madison had thanked me then, called me her wedding angel. Now she told me to respect her time. Outside, cicadas screamed in the Charleston heat. A flag snapped against the porch post, its stars blurred by humidity. Children raced bikes down the street, their laughter slicing through the thick air. It all looked so ordinary, but my world tilted under the weight of invisibility. I touched the empty chair across from me, once Christopher's place. Elbows pressed grooves into its wood when he studied through the night. Now dust claimed it, a witness to my exclusion. The phone blinked again. Abigail this time. Don't take it personally. You always make Madison nervous. My chest tightened. Don't take it personally. To be erased from my son's wedding wasn't personal? I let the screen go dark, but the words carved themselves into me anyway. The binder lay open, its pages whispering like an indictment. For years I had been useful, the scaffolding beneath their lives, but useful is not the same as loved. As the sun dipped, amber light filled the kitchen. I closed the binder, pressing down hard enough for the papers to sigh. Every receipt had my ink. If they wanted me gone, maybe I would take myself. It's protection of your worth. Her voice was steady, sharper than the cicadas screaming in the oaks around us. We sat on her porch as dusk softened Charleston's edges, the binders splayed open between our wine glasses. Receipts, contracts, timelines, pages that looked so harmless, now heavy as verdicts. The evening smelled of fried catfish from a neighbor's kitchen, grass cut short that afternoon, and the faint musk of pine sap. A ceiling fan whined above us, pushing the thick southern air in lazy circles. I clutched my glass of Merlot, cheap and tart, and tried not to let my hand tremble. "I thought I was just helping," I murmured. Darlene's eyes narrowed. "Helping doesn't put your name in ink. Look, Eleanor, you're not the helper here. You're the client. They built this wedding on your back." Her words jolted me. I looked down at my own handwriting, neat loops of Eleanor Hayes. Over and over at the bottom of contracts, for years those same loops had signed permission slips, discharge papers, grocery checks, always facilitating, never claiming. Darlene slid one sheet toward me, tapping the margin. "Final payment due 7 days before event. Failure to pay results in void. Deposit returned to contracting client." "That's you," she said firmly. "Not Christopher, not Madison. You." I swallowed. "If I stop the payment, it all collapses, and every dollar goes back to you," she said. "Eleanor, you are the spine of this wedding. They erased your face from the picture but forgot your name under every line." Her words stirred a memory. Madison, months earlier, standing in my kitchen while pecan pie cooled on the counter. She hadn't even tasted it. Her eyes had gone straight to the stack of invitations I was proofing. "Centerpieces will matter more than table numbers," she said, her voice like ice. "And please, don't bring lilies. Hydrangeas look better in photos." When I tried to explain that the florist had already ordered lilies, she waved her manicured hand. "You're sweet, but just sign. We'll make the real decisions." That day, I smiled tightly and let her words settle like dust. But sitting now on Darlene's porch, I finally understood. I had signed more than contracts. I had signed away my visibility. Darlene poured more wine, her bracelets clinking. "This isn't about punishing them," she said, softer now. "It's about protecting yourself. They've been cashing checks from your silence for years." She leaned closer. "Contracts are love letters in ink, Eleonora, but you never got to sign as mother, only as servant." I opened the binder again. Each page whispered back memories. The florist promising delicate lilies, just as you requested. The caterer squeezing my hand and saying, "We'll make this flawless for you," the linen rental clerk scribbling my name with a nod of respect. They had all treated me as if I were the bride. In a way, I was married to responsibility, married to labor no one celebrated. A boy pedaled past on his bike, streamers flapping, shouting for a friend down the block. His carefree laughter twisted my heart. I remembered Christopher at that age, hair plastered with sprinkler water, laughing when I chased him in with a towel. I thought my sacrifice was securing him joy. Now, I saw they had only taught him entitlement. I pulled my laptop from my bag, its silver lid still warm from the day. Darlene fell silent, watching. The porch light clicked on. I set the binder beside me, opened the laptop, and began to type. The glow lit the pages, casting shadows that looked almost alive. "To whom it may concern," I wrote to the venue. My words were simple, cold, precise. "As the contracted client for the event scheduled on August 30th under Claramone Events, I am notifying you that the final payment will not be made. Please consider this official notice of cancellation. Refund deposit to the account on file. Thank you." I reread it. Not bitter, not vengeful, just business. Then came the florist, the caterer, the rentals. Each email crafted with care, citations from clauses highlighted in yellow by Darlene, PDFs attached. Each keystroke echoed like a nail sealing a coffin. Not of their wedding, but of my silence. When I finished the last one, I leaned back, breathing evenly. Drafts lined my screen, waiting like soldiers for dawn orders. I scheduled them all for 9:00 a.m. 7 days before the wedding, not as threat, as truth. Darlene raised her glass toward me. "To choosing yourself." I lifted mine, though my grip wavered. The Merlot tasted raw, almost metallic, but it steadied me. The porch fan creaked. Cicadas droned. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once, then quieted. Life carried on, but inside me something had shifted. I closed the laptop gently, pressing it shut like a finished book. The binder rested beneath it, pages heavy with every erased sacrifice. For once, I didn't feel like a villain, not even triumphant, just still. At 9 sharp, it won't just be contracts dissolving, it will be decades of silence finally breaking. At exactly 9:00 a.m., 4 emails left my outbox. Calm, polite, and lethal. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands folded, coffee cooling beside me, listening to the tick of the stove clock. Outside, Charleston moved on with its usual rhythm, sprinklers tapping on dry lawns, garbage trucks growling down the street. The world didn't pause for my decision, but I did. I closed my eyes and exhaled. For decades, I had swallowed every slight, rebuilt every collapse, offered silence in place of anger. This time, silence was my weapon. The first voicemail arrived before my coffee reached my lips. Mr. Harrison, the venue manager, spoke with professional regret. "We've received your cancellation, Mrs. Hayes. We're sorry to lose your business. We hope you'll consider us again in the future." Played it twice. What I heard wasn't regret. It was recognition. My name, not theirs. Mrs. Hayes, contracting client. Minutes later, the florist's number flashed. I let it ring. A voicemail followed, frantic this time. "Eleanor, we've already prepped the order. Our drainages aren't refundable. Please call us." Then another call 10 minutes later, more urgent, as if they couldn't accept the truth that their deal stood with me, not Madison. By the third call, their voice cracked. The collapse had begun, and they could hear it in their own shop. The caterer emailed, confused but obedient, "Your cancellation has been processed. Refund to follow." The rental company's automated system sent a tidy note confirming a voided order. Each message landed like a domino, tipping into the next, one service after another sliding back to me. By noon, my phone lit up like a siren. 30 calls, then 50. Christopher, Madison, Abigail, even Richard. Their names blinked and vanished, one after another. I watched the phone vibrate across the table like something alive, desperate to be answered. I didn't touch it. Richard's voicemail cut through eventually, his tone sharp and impatient. "Eleanor, stop this nonsense. You're making a scene. Family doesn't quit on family." Almost laughed. That was the same voice I remembered from years ago, when he'd come home late, reeking of whiskey. I had asked if he'd remembered Abigail's school play. He waved his hand, dismissive. "Don't be dramatic, Ellie. The kid won't even notice." He was wrong then, and he was wrong now. Family does notice, especially when you're told you don't count. I stood from the table, stretching the stiffness in my shoulders, and opened the hallway closet. The pale green dress still hung there, sleeves limp like tired arms. I touched the plastic and felt nothing but relief. That dress had been chosen for a stage I was never meant to step on. Back in my bedroom, I unzipped a suitcase and laid it open on the quilt. Linen dresses, sandals, a wide-brimmed hat. I rolled clothes instead of folding them. A trick Christopher once taught me before a trip to Chicago, when he still wanted me at his side. The memory pricked, but I kept packing. This trip wasn't for him. It was for me. By early afternoon, the Charleston airport shimmered under the heat. Asphalt rippled like water. In my purse, my ticket waited. Maui. Just one word, a promise I had postponed too long. At the gate, I glanced at my phone. 93 missed calls. Madison's texts at the top, sharp and panicked. "You ruined everything." "Do you know what you've done?" Christopher's messages bled with desperation. "Mom, please. We're lost. Call me back." Richard's voicemail, again, stern, commanding. "Fix this, Elena. Quit playing games. You're embarrassing everyone." Embarrassing. That word had been his favorite weapon. When I'd cried in front of the children during the divorce, he muttered. When I sold my engagement ring to cover Christopher's condo, he said, "Don't let anyone know how desperate you are." Shame had been his leash. Today, the leash snapped. I set the phone face down. Around me, families wrangled children, business travelers hammered on laptops, couples toasted their honeymoons with plastic cups. No one looked at me twice. I was anonymous, and I savored it. Hours later, Maui opened before me with salt air and an ocean that moved like breath itself. At the small hotel by the beach, I dropped my suitcase on the bed and flung the curtains wide. The horizon stretched beyond apology. The next morning, I walked barefoot to the sand, a cup of Kona coffee warming my hand. Children down the shore shrieked as their sandcastle collapsed, their mother laughing as they built again. I sipped slowly, the tide tugging at my toes, and realized how much of my life had been just that, rebuilding what others destroyed, quietly, patiently, without thanks. My phone buzzed in the towel beside me. 106 missed calls now, voices stacked like bricks, panicked, angry, pleading. I let them pile up. I whispered into the salt wind, not for them but for me. You wanted me gone. Now you know what that means. By noon, their wedding wasn't unraveling. It was gone. And the phone on my table wouldn't stop screaming. You sabotaged us. Christopher's voice cracked through the phone, Madison's crying shrill in the background like glass breaking. I stood barefoot on the balcony of my Maui hotel, the ocean below folding into itself again and again, steady, indifferent. The mug of coffee in my hand had gone lukewarm, but I barely noticed. The storm on the other end of the line drowned out everything else. The caterer didn't come, he shouted, words tumbling fast. The venue canceled. The florist sent the flowers back. Mom, Madison is hysterical. Do you realize what you've done? For years, I would have scrambled, made calls, apologized, patched holes in the dam. Now, I just listened. Madison's voice rose suddenly, cutting through his, sharp, high, dripping venom. You jealous, bitter woman. You couldn't stand not being the center, could you? You wanted the whole day to collapse because you weren't in it. Her words stabbed deeper than her sobbing ever could. My hand tightened on the mug, knuckles pale. Christopher snapped, "Stop, Madison. Just stop." But she didn't. She never liked me. Madison wailed. She wanted this, Chris. She planned it. Who does this to their own child? For a heartbeat, my throat burned. Tears pricked the back of my eyes, uninvited, unwanted. I bit them back hard, pressing my free hand against the cool balcony railing until the wood grain dug into my palm. They would not see me break. Not this time. No, Christopher, I said at last, my voice low but unshaking. I didn't sabotage you. I removed my work from people who erased me. His breath hitched. The ocean kept its rhythm. You could have warned us, he said, the panic in his tone softening into something like a plea. You blindsided us. I gave you everything else, I answered. My time, my money, my labor, my silence. I built the entire foundation, and you told me to leave before the celebration. From Wena's nod, what we meant. His desperation surged. You know how Madison gets when she's overwhelmed. She didn't mean. Of course. Excuses. Soft landings for everyone but me. I had spent decades cushioning their falls. Richard once told me, so I didn't. On the other end, Madison hissed, her sobs morphing into fury. Don't you dare act noble. You ruined the only day that mattered. You destroyed us. Her words struck like stones, but this time I didn't flinch. Christopher's voice cracked again, quieter now. Mom, I don't know if she'll ever forgive you. The ocean breeze tangled through my hair. Down on the beach, a child squealed with delight as their sandcastle crumbled under the tide. The mother laughed and crouched to help them build again, no anger in her voice. I watched, aching with recognition. That had been me, all my life, rebuilding what others knocked down. I turned back to the phone. I'm not asking for her forgiveness, I said. My voice was steady, though my chest ached from the tears I'd locked down. Not anymore. For a long moment, only the surf spoke. My breathing steadied into its rhythm. This isn't personal, I added softly but firmly. It's survival. Before Christopher could respond, before Madison could throw another dagger, I pressed the red button and ended the call. The silence that followed was vast and clean. My hand shook faintly as I set the phone on the nightstand. For a second, I thought the tears would finally come, but they didn't. I drew in a deep breath and opened the curtains wide. The ocean gleamed under late sun, endless and unapologetic. Its waves collapsed into each other again and again, teaching me that not everything needs rebuilding. Hours later, when I checked the phone again, one new message waited, from Christopher. Just 2 words. You win, no apology, no understanding, just blame dressed as surrender. I deleted it without replying. Winning had never been my goal. The golden light stretched across the beach, warm against my skin. Somewhere across the Pacific, they were still clawing through the ruins of a wedding that had never begun. Here, the tide erased every footprint without asking permission. For the first time in years, I let it erase mine, too. Back in Charleston, I pulled the pale green dress from my closet and dropped it into a donation box without a word. The fabric slid into the cardboard like water, quiet and final. I added the heels I had chosen to match, the clutch I bought on clearance, the jewelry set still pinned to its card. All of it belonged to a future that had never included me. Someone else could wear them now, someone still invited to the places they helped build. The house was still when I closed the closet door. Afternoon light stretched across the floorboards, golden and gentle. It felt different than before. Less like an interrogation, more like a benediction. For the first time in months, maybe years, the silence didn't sting. I sat at the kitchen table, a pen in my hand and a single sheet of stationery before me. No phone, no laptop, just ink and paper. My handwriting looked the same as it had on every contract, but this time the words were not binding agreements, they were a release. You uninvited me from the wedding, I wrote. I wasn't trying to be a guest. I was the one who built it. You tore it down. I signed my initials, E.M., and folded the page cleanly. No return address. No room for argument. I slipped it into an envelope and walked it down to the mailbox. The flag clinked when I pulled it up, a red slash against the soft blue sky. On the way back, I paused at the curb. The neighbors were trimming hedges, children chasing a soccer ball. No one looked twice at me. I liked that. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the servant. I wasn't even the victim. I was just a woman carrying her own silence like a shield. Inside again, I brewed a pot of coffee and opened the windows. The air smelled of magnolia and cut grass, sweet and sharp at once. I sat at the table where I had once planned every detail of their wedding. Tablescapes, timelines, invoices. Now I planned nothing at all, and it felt like freedom. A breeze lifted the corner of an old family photo on the fridge. Richard smiling with his politician's charm, Christopher in a Little League cap, Abigail holding a sparkler on the 4th of July. The picture tilted, loose under its magnet. I almost straightened it, then didn't. Let it hang crooked. Let the past rest that way. I thought of Maui. The flame had reminded me I was still here, still alive, still mine. I didn't pray for forgiveness. I prayed for presence. The donation box sat by the front door, ready to leave with tomorrow's pickup. The sight of it gave me a strange lightness, like taking off a coat that had been too heavy for too long. That evening I walked the neighborhood, past the church with its white steeple, the grocery with its faded awning, the brick homes with porches that sagged a little under summer's weight. People waved. I waved back. Ordinary, anonymous. Exactly what I wanted. Back home, I poured the last of the coffee into my favorite chipped mug and sat by the open window. Cicadas had begun their chorus again, steady and relentless. I didn't hate their noise anymore. It sounded like persistence, like survival. On the counter lay the binder, still thick, still orderly, still signed in my hand. I didn't throw it away. I didn't burn it. I simply closed it and slid it onto the shelf with the cookbooks and tax folders that live as proof not of pain, but of power. Later, as the sun dipped and shadows stretched long across the yard, I stepped onto the porch. The flag on the neighbor's house stirred lazily. The street was quiet, except for a dog barking 2 blocks over. I leaned against the railing and felt the wood warm from the day. For once, I didn't imagine who might be calling, who might be needing, who might be disappointed. The phone lay inside, face down, silent. The world outside moved on, and I moved with it. I wasn't angry. I was finished, and for the first time in years, that was enough. I never imagined that betrayal could come dressed in silence. It wasn't a fight, a slammed door, or a cruel word shouted in anger. It was a text message, short and sharp, telling me I no longer belonged. That kind of betrayal cuts deeper than any argument because it is so cold, so calculated, so final. For years, I had lived in the shadows of my own family, giving my time, my energy, my money, and my love without ever demanding recognition. I thought sacrifice was the currency of motherhood. I believed that if I stayed silent, stayed useful, I would always have a place. But silence only taught them how easy it was to erase me. Family betrayal doesn't always look like abuse. Sometimes it looks like being left out of the picture you built with your own hands. Sometimes it looks like a son who accepts your help but denies your presence. Sometimes it sounds like a daughter telling you that your very existence is stressful. And sometimes it is a daughter-in-law who takes everything you gave and still insists that you are the problem. The lesson I had to learn the hard way is that love without boundaries is not love, it is servitude. The day I pressed send on those cancellation emails, I didn't destroy their wedding. I simply stopped financing my own erasure. It was not revenge. It was not cruelty. It was clarity. I discovered that my name had always been the one holding everything together. The moment I withdrew, the entire structure crumbled. That is the hidden truth of family betrayal. Those who erase you still rely on your foundation. And when the calls poured in, the tears, the anger, the accusations, I finally realized something important. Their chaos was not my chaos. Their panic was not my responsibility. I had given them every chance to value me. They chose not to. What followed was not victory, but peace. I found relief in knowing that I did not have to beg for a seat at a table I had already paid for. I could walk away, light, unburdened, whole. The moral is simple. Dignity is not given, it is claimed. If you do not set boundaries, people you love most will unknowingly or deliberately cross them until nothing of you remains. I learned that family can wound us more deeply than strangers because we expect them to protect us. But sometimes protecting yourself means stepping out of the very circle you've spent your life drawing. I will never apologize for choosing myself. For once, I wasn't the mother who fixed everything. I wasn't the ex-wife who kept the peace. I wasn't the servant holding up the walls. I was simply me, and that was enough. So I tell you this, betrayal may break your heart, but it can also set you free. Sometimes walking away is the only form of justice left. Sometimes silence is not surrender, but survival. And the truth I carry now is this. To be erased is painful, but to step back on your own terms is powerful. Have you ever experienced something like this? Share your thoughts below. If you loved this story, type number 1 and subscribe to Auntie Tales to hear the next one.